Roman Reigns and the Bloodline get rocked as Jey Uso says ooses deuces and walks out of WWE. There is a new U.S. title holder, and it's not quite who you expected. Could they just keep Charlie Flair away from Asuka for just 1 week? Of course not. And L.A. Knight, defeats Uncle Phil. It's all coming up in today's amped up, audio formatted only podcast. Smash those ups, pop in those earbuds, and let's get amplified. Now, a couple of stories I want to run through real quickly before we start the SmackDown review. First and foremost, we are now hearing the injury that Roman Reigns sustained at SummerSlam was either a hip or back issue and injury. Now, we didn't know the severity of that injury, but last night there was a good sign. Roman Reigns took a bump, a super kick, a couple of bumps, right? Super kick and a spear by Jey Uso. We'll talk much more about that when we get to the review. But a couple of bumps that Roman is already taking. So that is a really good sign. I mean, I know he doesn't work a lot of dates anyway, and he rarely defends his championship. Good for him. What a deal he's got. So it probably doesn't matter that much. He could be out 2-3 months with an injury, and you'd never know it because that's how he's booked anyway. But it's still good that the dude's taking the bumps and the injury doesn't look to be that severe. So if they did want to prop him in there for like a payback pay-per-view, he could actually wrestle. And that's a little segue into my next story I'd like to discuss. Rikishi returning to WWE. It is now looking way more likely than not. Apparently there was a poster for a Rikishi autograph signing for late August. And the caption on this poster read, and I quote, "Come meet Rikishi before he referees at Payback." So it appears WWE is bringing in Rikishi for this Bloodline storyline, obviously to do with the Usos and Roman and Solo, and he is going to be refereeing this big Payback match. We hope that wasn't ruined. WWE in the past, something has leaked and they took it completely off the table. Seeing Rikishi in this feud just makes sense. I'm surprised we haven't seen Rikishi in this Bloodline story the last year plus, way beforehand. I hope this isn't ruined by this leak, but it looks like Rikishi will be refereeing at Payback, which means they're going to set this up a few weeks before. I don't know how you guys feel about seeing Rikishi back in WWE, but I'm pumped for it. And I think it would only elevate this entire story. Over to Brian Pillman Jr., former AEW talent. We are hearing he is not officially signed with WWE yet, as there are pending medical tests. Once he and those are cleared, then we expect Brian Pillman Jr. to sign with the company. Now, do they keep him in NXT or do they catapult him to the main roster? That's the question. And I'm not so sure how you guys feel about Brian Pillman Jr. I feel there was untapped potential in AEW, and I don't know if that lies on Tony Khan's shoulders or Brian Pillman Jr.'s, or maybe a mixture of the two. But I do feel like he can bring something special to NXT and or the main roster. How over he gets, that's a different topic for another day. That's a whole nother spectrum. That would rely on what Pillman is doing, his booking. The stars would have to align correctly at the right time, lightning in a bottle type situation to catapult Brian Pillman Jr. to the top of WWE. Not saying it's not possible, but man, everything would have to go right. But I'm not even talking about just getting over to a certain level. I do feel he can bring a lot of special assets to WWE, just like I felt he could do for AEW. But we're hearing he is not officially signed yet, despite reports that are out there. So that's just a few things that I wanted to go over, guys, before the SmackDown review. All right, And SmackDown, August 11th, 2023. The show starts with the new SmackDown commentary team welcoming us to Calgary. Michael Cole, Kevin Patrick, and Corey Graves. Of course, Kevin Patrick and Corey Graves got Das Boot from Monday nights, and now they're under the tutelage of Michael Cole. Now, if you missed Raw, Michael Cole is also over there as well with Wade Barrett. So clearly Pat McAfee is the odd man out with college football starting again. I don't think you're going to see Pat McAfee on commentary for a very long time. For this night, we go right into action. Asuka versus Charlie Flair. We would not get a decisive winner as Damage Control's Bayley and Io Sky hit ringside and eventually cause a double DQ, taking out Asuka and Charlie. Who is the face and who is the heel anymore? Because Asuka, when she was kinda Asuka, was definitely more of the heelish variety. Then she comes out with this Belair Charlie feud that's going on while she's champion, and you truly don't know if she's supposed to be face or heel. Charlie Flair, on the flip side, every single week, every show, every appearance, she is a different version of herself. Heel if they boo her, and if they cheer, she's a face. That's not going to cut it. It is going to confuse your audience, a conundrum that will not allow them to care or show any investment into these characters. And that's sad when you're talking about Asuka. But I no longer, as I know most of you guys don't know who is heel and who is face anymore when you're talking Asuka, Charlie, and even Bianca Belair the way she's been booked. Damage Control takes out Asuka and Charlie, and you can even throw them into the mix. You look at their reaction at SummerSlam, Damage Control, when Io Sky Shirai won that championship at SummerSlam when she cashed in on Bianca Belair. Listen to that pop. Look at that crowd. Damage Control on top of the world, and the crowd was there for it. The booking of these ladies is doing nothing but hurting them in the long run. Backstage, speaking of the ladies, the ever so beautiful Kayla Braxton introduces Escobar as, and I quote, the sensational Santos Escobar. Big Bronson Reed and the sensational Santos Escobar. He then instantly receives a sensational ass whooping by Austin Theory. Now that would come into play a few segments later when their match was about to go on. So keep that backstage brawl in mind. Not really a brawl. Again, this was just Santos getting taken out by Theory. When it was all said and done with this U.S. title match, the wrestling world was absolutely just dumbfounded by the decision that was made last night. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but this backstage beatdown set up what was to come. Up next, AJ Styles defeats Karrion Kross via pinfall. Mia Yim takes out Scarlett Bordeaux. At ringside, Scarlett's trying to get involved, trying to help out Karrion get this W, and Mia Yim, Munchkin, she's not having any of it. She tosses Scarlett clear over the commentary table, takes her out on the outside. Back inside, Styles hits Kross with the Pele Kick Styles Clash combo to win this match, pinning Karrion Kross 1, 2, 3. The crowd in Calgary was jacked up for the finish. It was a nice W for AJ. As for Karrion, if you look at his last half year, the last 6 months, dating back to March, he's had 17 matches, and Karrion has only won 3 of them. That's basically a 17% winning percentage. That's not going to get the job done when you're trying to get people to care, heel or face, about Karrion Kross. So again, it's a nice W for AJ last night, but it is a rough L for Karrion. Edge then returns for the end of Hour 1 and the beginning of Hour 2. He hypes up being in Canada and brings out Sheamus and the Brawling Brutes. For the next 5 minutes, we had an awkward comedy skit where they showed Sheamus and Edge riding bicycles together, including a gnarly wipeout by Edge. Now, I could have sworn that vid was from a long time ago. I remember seeing Edge wipe out. This was on, I believe, Celtic Workouts or some project that Sheamus was doing. And then they proceeded to tell each other dad jokes, or kind of hit each other with lame dad jokes. The crowd was, and this is Calgary, mind you, they were pretty jazzed up for everything that was happening last night, even some of the dumbfounding decisions. So when they were flat here, for Edge of all people, you knew this segment was just not landing. But the tone would get a bit more serious when they told one another how much respect they had for the other. And then a match was made for next week between the two, Sheamus versus Edge in Toronto, Canada, to celebrate Edge's 25-year career. Now, if you're jazzed up for that, if you're excited for that, that is awesome. Good for you, kid. Good for you. BC, not one iota of excitement to see Sheamus and Edge next week. Or next month, next year, at a Payback, a Backlash, a WrestleMania, a Saturday night's main event, or a Sunday stunner. BC does not need to see Sheamus and Edge. But I will check it out. I hope it is good, and I hope we speak nothing but positivity on it. That's going to be next week, celebrating Edge's 25-year pro wrestling career in WWE. Again, I don't know what this whole segment was about. It fell flat, and it was only to give us Sheamus and Edge set that up for next week. I wish I could tell you there was more substance to this. Hey, at the bare minimum, right? The positive here, the good here, is that we got to see Edge. It was unannounced, I believe, not promoted. I don't believe it was in Canada anyway. It wasn't to us for sure. It was not marketed, not promoted, his appearance. So when you hear Edge's theme, you kind of get a little bit amped. And then I don't know. I think he was better on the Grayson Waller effect, to be honest, but Edge, Sheamus next week. It was good to see Edge. That's the best I can give you on this, guys. It is a straight review, and I'm telling you right now, man, the segment fell flat. Sheamus is taking on LA Knight, losing against LA Knight. Battle Royal, then he's losing to LA Knight one-on-one. And that was before the Battle Royal. Now he's taking on Edge, and he's clearly not going to win against Edge. So I don't know, man. Ever since Sheamus kind of spoke out about not being happy with his booking, it looks like Paul Levesque McMahon is saying, oh yeah, hold my protein bars or my bifocals. You're going to get even shittier booking, buddy. Moving on, speaking of LA Knight, defeats Top Dolla via BFT pinfall. Post-match, LA Knight says it doesn't matter if you're awesome or if you're Uncle Phil. They're all going to be saying L.A. Knight. Yeah, I love that. Uncle Phil, of course, is the Top Dollar reference from a couple of weeks ago. BC definitely popped on that. Still do. Because they just resemble one another. To a T, man. Top Dollar is Uncle Phil. Just in a totally different time frame. He's ahead of his time. But Top Dollar was taken out pretty simplistically here by LA Knight. BFT, this just continues that ride, man. Hopefully we can get LA Knight in those big matches, maybe even going for a title in the near future. I still don't know how you screw up the opportunity they had, man. Tens of thousands of people in Detroit for SummerSlam. And they somehow missed the boat on this one. And they did not have Austin Theory drop his title to LA Knight at SummerSlam. They didn't even have the title defended at SummerSlam. They just held off for the week after and had Austin Theory defend there. And we're going to get to that in a second, by the way. Before we get to that, we got Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits backstage. They're dressed to impress. They're sipping wine and champagne. They're talking SmackDown needing new stars to lead the brand. And it's very ironic hearing Bobby Lashley tell the Street Profits that he sees so much untapped potential in them. Because with Bobby's booking, you could easily say the same for him. Since Bobby came back to WWE, there's been nothing but untapped potential. So it's kind of funny to see him acting like the godfather to the Street Profits and telling them that he sees so much potential and telling them he's the vehicle that's going to get them to that destination. It's just ironic and funny, but I hope they all make each other better. We'll see where that leads. Santos Escobar, the sensational Santos Escobar, according to Kayla Braxton and WWE's new name for this dude. I'm telling you, that's probably going to be his new name, Sensational Santos. This is the U.S. title match against Austin Theory. Now, Theory takes him out during his entrance. So Santos was already derailed by Theory earlier backstage. And after being flatlined again before the match during his entrance, Adam Pearce was like, enough, the dude is done. Stick a fork in him, dude is done. So Pearce says, you are going to defend your title tonight as advertised, and it will be against Rey Mysterio. Booyaka, booyaka comes out. This was a quick match. Theory hit with the 619 and then a subsequent splash. Rey pins Theory for the victory and becomes new U.S. champion. So was Mysterio supposed to beat Santos last week before Rey Mysterio was injured, knocked out cold on the outside? Was this the original plan from the jump, Rey Mysterio, to win this thing all along? There are so many dumbfounding questions. And Theory has been champion this many months just to lose to Rey Mysterio on a random SmackDown in Canada in the middle of August, after SummerSlam. Theory was defeated by defeated. No, if he was defeated by John Cena, it'd be different. Austin Theory defeated John Cena at WrestleMania to lose like this? Wow, poor Jonathan Cena, guys. John Cena took a massive gamble at WrestleMania. This is who the company said we believe in if you can just pass a torch, so to speak. This is one of those moments, not like Cody and Brock. That's not a passing of the torch. Cody's been wrestling since 2007, has done it all. But it's, or most anyway. This is like a passing of the torch. You got John Cena losing at WrestleMania to this dude that still has not gotten over, right? They're hoping that John Cena will be the final piece in this puzzle to get Austin Theory over. And you could tell Cena had his reservations about it. Cena did not believe it. His promo to Austin Theory was scathing, and it was very real. You hear that? Do you hear that? It's because they don't care about you. The crickets you hear, they don't care about you. They have to pipe in boos. They have to pipe in fake sound to make it seem like people are interested when you come out here. And he kept on just dropping one scathing line after another, but it was true because John Cena wanted to get the best out of him because he wanted this loss at WrestleMania to matter and mean something. And this was Jonathan Cena's worst fear, right? It led to nothing. We saw that in the months after Mania, and everybody now, even the company knows, Austin Theory, unfortunately, just doesn't connect. And you can do 17 different resets and repackages, but if it ain't done correctly, it ain't gonna matter. This dude put the cell phone down, and that was the repackage. Nothing changed. And here we are in the middle of August on a random Canada SmackDown, and a Hall of Famer like Rey Mysterio, who needs no rub or bump or to get over, he is the one to beat Austin Theory. John Cena loses at Mania, but Mysterio beats Austin Theory. It just doesn't make sense. Props. Much love and respect to Rey Mysterio, by the way. I am just dumbfounded by the decision that this is the way you take the title off when you could have had a much bigger moment at SummerSlam, by the way, and you could have had a much more impactful star really create something huge in somebody like LA Knight. Wow, BC could not believe when Rey Mysterio hoisted that championship up. Again, we love Rey, much love and respect, awesome for him. I don't know what that's going to do for Austin Theory going forward. I feel bad for Jonathan Cena, and nothing makes sense about the whole situation. Bloodline is middle of the ring next. Roman Reigns. This is the main event segment, by the way. Bloodline, middle of the ring. It's Roman Reigns, it's Paul Heyman, and it's Solo Sikoa. Jey Uso comes to the ring by himself through the crowd. He's really not into what Roman has to say. It looks like he's conflicted. Jey Uso now in the ring, joining Roman, Paul, and Solo, but he's kind of his own dude at this point. Fantastic heel heat from the crowd for Jey Uso. You sold out chants, loudly, heavy. You sold out. Even signs that read, "Why Jimmy, why?" Priceless, of course, being in Calgary in the infamous "Why Brett, why?" So this was just great. Jey Uso does hit the ring. Jey Uso wants to know why. Before he wastes 37 years, he just wants to know why. Basically, why Jimmy, why? And we had some really good back and forth with Jimmy and Jey. Jimmy is telling Jey why he did it. It's because he didn't want Jimmy to become this tribal chief and become this asshole that Roman became. He doesn't want to lose his twin brother or his tag team partner, and he believed that that type of spotlight and that position is so much stress, it'll make him so much like an asshole, he would lose the Jey Uso that he knows. At first, I'm like, this is BS. This is a stupid reason. Come on, you got to do better than this. But by the time Jimmy was done, I was all into the explanation. And Jey turns his back on him. Jimmy walks off. This leads Roman to say, see, you're too stupid to realize what this has all been about for the last 3 years. Acknowledge, and he gets a super kick right to the dome piece. Roman Reigns is dropped via the super kick. Solo spike is about to happen, but nope, super kick to Solo Sikoa. A spear to Roman Reigns. Jey Uso is on fire. He tells Jimmy to come back to the ring because Jimmy walked off, upset that his brother no longer wants anything to do with him. Jimmy comes back thinking they're gonna hug it out. Jey's all smiles. Wabaka! A super kick to Jey Uso. Jimmy gets fallen like a stack of bricks. Jimmy sold this beautifully. Jey Uso looks at the camera, and Jey Uso says, I'm out of the bloodline. I'm out of SmackDown, and I'm out of WWE. Deuces, ooses, and he walks through the crowd, and he walks out of WWE. The last time you've seen Jey Uso, of course, storyline-wise. Maybe he's just asking for some time off. Maybe this is just part of a really good story still being told. But Jey Uso leaves WWE, and what a way to go out. He took the bloodline out, and he's saying deuces, ooses, and this guy's got the crowd. The WWE crowd, the audience, the fans are really behind this dude. I don't see him staying away that long. I mean, they're going to want to strike with this dude. That's how over he is. And I don't know how they're going to progress the bloodline story without him, other than now Jimmy will still have tension with Roman, I guess, while Jey takes some time off. Where does Jey come back? The next pay-per-view? Is it Saudi? Is it setting up a big Survivor Series angle? Obviously, maybe it's all the above, man. But what a main event segment. And I love how the commentators, they just shut up as Jey was going through the crowd and leaving the arena, which is... it's acting as if he's literally walking out of WWE, right? He goes through the upper deck section, through that little curtain, and the camera just stays on it with no words from Michael Cole, Kevin Patrick, or Corey Graves. And that was SmackDown 8/11/2023. And a couple of shout outs to my amplified unit. James Miller with a 5-spot super chat, super thanks. Salute BC and salute Bray Wyatt. Appreciate that, James Miller. Of course, yesterday we discussed the imminent return of Bray Wyatt. And while I know he's not everybody's cup of coffee, to say that everybody goes into a Bray or comes out of a Bray Wyatt feud worse than they went in is just not true. Prime example, just recently, LA Knight. I mean, you're talking about a Mountain Dew match. Good luck turning lemons into lemonade. But somehow, LA Knight, man, and I say somehow, I'm not that shocked. It's Bray Wyatt, and it's LA Knight. I told you guys during the weeks leading up to that Royal Rumble Mountain Dew match. I was not on board with the Mountain Dew gimmick, but I told you guys if anybody can make this work, it's going to be Bray and LA Knight. And I told you guys this is one of those stories that's actually captivating a lot of the wrestling world. And sure enough, coming out of the Rumble, starting in February, you started to hear loud LA Knight chants. And by the time you reach WrestleMania, LA Knight was one of the loudest chants for Mania, and he wasn't even used. Night 1, nothing. Night 2, nothing. You go to the Battle Royal on SmackDown before WrestleMania, LA Knight was the loudest pop and chant. It started right during and after that Bray Wyatt feud. So this guy has a lot to offer. And then when you just look at numbers, metrics, statistics, merchandise sales, Bray Wyatt is consistently at the top. The only dude to dethrone Roman Reigns twice in merchandise and dethrone him 5 times in the ratings. That's Bray Wyatt. So you hear a lot of chatter of how people don't like Bray Wyatt. But that's just the case. The Jets logo this season, I love it. If you ain't got haters, you ain't popping. I love it. Bray Wyatt, you can chirp away, but Bray Wyatt's going to do the barking and the biting. And Bray Wyatt, when he comes back, you're going to see ratings, metrics, sales, all of that will go right back to the top for Bray Wyatt. So anyways, I'm going to echo those same sentiments, James. Salute to Bray Wyatt for sure. Can't wait for the dude to come back. Hopefully he is fully healthy, healed up, and ready to rock. Also, Jimmy Fingers 19 with a 20 spot. A bunch of coffees being chucked over to the channel. Always good to see Jimmy Fingers 19 up on the channel. Glad you touched on this, BC. There is a trickle-down effect here. I know you are hard on CM Brooks at times, as am I. But with the Bucks doing FTR at All In, I think Kenny versus Phil Brooks was the match for that show. No, Punk cannot go over, but Kenny could have carried him. Oh, no, Punk cannot go, but Kenny could have carried him and gave the crowd and fan base a story and a payoff for the all-out drama. Kenny versus Tasheta, nah, that's a Rampage match. I like that. I called that a Dynamite match in yesterday's podcast. But yeah, I mean, you could put that at Rampage and I would believe it as well. Jimmy Fingers also says, when Samoa Joe came out on Collision to issue a challenge, I was hoping Miro would answer that. That's a matchup I've never seen. That's a matchup we've never seen. You know, Jimmy Fingers, you bring up a good point, man. Hold on. Before I get to Punk and Omega, Miro versus Samoa Joe, and you give that a 2-month proper build. Damn! That's a match I didn't even think of, bro. That's a match you don't think you need to see until you think about it, and now you need to see it. So you have Miro versus Samoa Joe. Damn, that would have been awesome. And then you go over to CM Punk and Kenny Omega. Absolutely agreed that if you could work out this real situation, turn it into business for Punk and Omega, and put that in All In, you would have 70,000 plus fans, palm of your hand. You would have more pay-per-view buys than you ever could have imagined. Kenny Omega versus Punk with all that happened beforehand. But that's what I mean when I say that Tony Khan didn't really put a lot of thought into All In. The logistics side of it, no question, right? Filling up All In, making sure all's good for the UK. The card, it's not by coincidence, and he hadn't had this plan for 4 months, that on the 200th edition of Dynamite last week, he was going to start announcing matches. That was not by plan. He was doing a lot of other cards. A lot of other side shows, man. From ROH to a new show called Collision to a bunch of themed Dynamites. And he's giving all these big matches away and he's trying to fill up all these cards. And by the time you realize you got 2 pay-per-views in 1 month's time. All In on the 27th, about 15 days away. And a week later, All Out. So literally, in less than a month, you have 2 pay-per-views. And we're just now spitting matches out. But if this was thought of ahead of time, there's a lot better matches we could have been getting at All In. We all know that. Now, would you have seen Omega and Brooks? That's a long shot only because The Elite really doesn't want to work with Phil Brooks. Omega would be the only one to let bygones just set him aside. Omega would be the only one. The Bucks definitely don't want to. Their spokesperson, David Meltzer, has already said that 100 different ways. The Bucks have pretty much told you that 100 different ways. Omega would actually do business. So I take that back. You could have actually done that. But not enough proper care went into this time-wise. And now here we are just a few weeks away, and we're spitting out matches. In fact, Kenny Omega versus Teixeira has not even been announced yet. That's just what we discussed on yesterday's podcast, because that's what we are hearing by reputable sources, that's the match that is going to be put on the map for All In. Again, I call that a Dynamite match at best. Jimmy Fingers calls it a Rampage match at best. And you know what? Nobody would be wrong. We know it's going to deliver. It should be fun. But man, when you're talking Kenny Omega, I expected a lot more. Jimmy Fingers also says, I don't care that the tickets are already sold. You want the best possible matchups, storyline-wise, to blow that roof off. Omega versus Teixeira and Punk versus Joe are not in my opinion. Stay amplified, 19. I love it. Jimmy Fingers, 19. I agree. Absolutely, man. Appreciate the coffees. Always good to see you up in here, and I am in full agreement with that. You just could have done a better card. All In is already a magical event for every other box that's been checked off. Now, if you put together the card of cards, and I'm not saying there's not a couple matches, you have FTR and Young Bucks, but we've seen it. That's what I mean. When you're going to do these matches, you got to make sure that is the venue, that is the time, and you're not going to want to run it back so soon. But let's not act like we haven't seen FTR and Young Bucks, but it's going to deliver. They'll say this is awesome and fight forever. They'll do all that. And you're going to see Adam Cole and MJF, and I'm sure they're going to, I don't think there's a roof on it, but I'm sure if there was, they'd blow it right off. So you're going to have good wrestling matches. Teixeira and Omega is going to be a good wrestling match. You're going to get 10, 12, 20 matches of good wrestling, but you can see good wrestling at the local bingo hall. I really hope the rest of the matches really file into something that I really, truly want to see. Not just should be good. Or that's going to be awesome. I want every box checked off. I want to make sure that the storyline, it's a matchup that is intriguing and captivating. Good points. Guys, it is the weekend. Smash it out. Enjoy yourselves, man. If you have a lot of travel like BC, rock it out. Get the business in, and until next time, and there will be a next time. Top guy, I'm out. BC saying check you. Peace!